Hey everybody, it's Tyler Austin. Thank you so much for watching. So, painting a rifle, how do? Certainly you could ship your rifle off to a professional and have them do it, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that if that's something you want to do. However, there are definitely disadvantages to that. Number one, it's very expensive, not only for the paint job, but for shipping prices and all that. Also, depending on the lead time of the individual or company you're sending it to, you might be without your rifle for a fairly long period of time, which kind of sucks. So there are definitely disadvantages to it. So unless you really want some super special spray paint on there or custom paint job, generally speaking, spray painting your rifle yourself is the way to go. So the example we're going to use in this video is going to be this AKP, this Palmetto State Armory AKP 7.62 by 39. I did a initial thoughts and unboxing of this pistol. I'll post a link up here for you to watch if you're interested. So this rifle or pistol, I'm sorry, came black, and this is obviously the finished product. It came out really nice. I'm really happy with how this came out. Originally it had Magpul furniture on it and stuff. I took it off and I put this OG Russian AK-74 plum furniture on, which I absolutely love. Plum and AKs just go so well together, and really it's kind of like an unspoken rule. If you have an AK, you have to have some plum somewhere. Anyways, so if you want to spray paint your rifle, what are you going to need? Well, number one, you're going to need a rifle. Then you are obviously going to need some spray paint. Now, generally speaking, I recommend the Rust-Oleum or the Krylon. Either brand works just fine. They're exactly the same. Rust-Oleum or Krylon camouflage paint. Now, you can use really any spray paint that you like, but be aware that if you're using other spray paint, make sure that you get the flattest or the mattest paint that you can get. You don't want any like gloss or semi-gloss or satin or anything like that. You don't want any shine to the paint. You want it as flat as possible. And this camouflage paint obviously is designed to be camouflage paint, so it is very flat. Pick colors that obviously blend into your environment. Now, generally speaking, tan, green, and brown, which is what I used for this AKP, will blend into virtually any environment other than winter. Pick 2 to 3 colors and that's it. Don't try to get cute with this. Don't try to use 5 or 6 different colors. That makes it way too complicated and it probably won't come out very well. Pick 2 or 3 colors and run with those. Next, you're going to need blue painter's tape or some sort of paint or tape, I'm sorry. But again, blue painter's tape is generally going to be the least amount of hassle, and it's not going to leave any residue on the rifle when you peel it off. You're going to need something to cover up the parts of the rifle you do not want to get paint on, which there are plenty of areas where you do not want to spray paint, so you're definitely going to need some sort of tape. Next, you're going to need something to create a pattern with. Now, for this example, and my favorite way to do this is with a cargo net. This is just something you put in the back of your car, like in your trunk or whatever, to hold groceries or boxes or whatever. These are fantastic, and you can get these really cheap off Amazon for like $7 or $10, and you can use these forever. You'll get basically like a cryptic pattern, if you will, using that cargo net. Another great option is using a cheap laundry bag. You can get these basically anywhere. You can get them at Walmart for like $1. They're super cheap, and these create a very interesting pattern as well. This will create more like a snakeskin pattern. Like in this AR, I painted this about a year ago, but you'll get like that snakeskin pattern, which works very well and looks really cool as well. So yeah, there are definitely different options. Some people really like to use vegetation. They'll take like palm leaves or whatever and use that. That's totally cool as well. But either way, you're going to need something to create a pattern. No matter what you use, really the process is exactly the same, so don't worry about it. Now, some preliminary questions I know people are going to ask, so we might as well get these out of the way now. Number one, do you need to degrease the rifle? Generally, the answer to that is no, unless for whatever reason the exterior of your rifle is really, really oily. I did have to degrease this one before painting it because it was a brand new firearm, and a lot of times, depending on the manufacturer, a brand new firearm is shipped really oily just to prevent it from rusting. So it was really oily, so I ended up degreasing it. But generally speaking, it's not necessary. Secondly, do you need to prime the rifle? No, that's completely unnecessary. Just paint the damn thing. You don't need to prime it. Do you need to disassemble the rifle? No. Unless you want to, you could certainly do it. But generally speaking, you don't have to. Now, I did have this rifle disassembled when I painted it, but that wasn't because I was painting it. It's because I was doing some work to the internal parts while I was spray painting it, so it was disassembled anyways. Certainly, if you want to disassemble it, you can, but it's not necessary. Now, in terms of attachments, such as like optics and white lights and whatnot, you can either paint those on the rifle or you can paint them separately. Either one is fine. One thing to be aware of, if you do paint them on the rifle, if you end up taking the attachment off afterwards, you will have a bald spot there. So with that being said, let's get right on to it. So first things first, you're going to need to tape over anything that you do not want painted on the rifle. Now, generally speaking, paint or tape over everything that or any area that leads inside the rifle. So this includes mag wells, ejection ports, etc., etc. You don't want to spray paint you don't want to get any spray paint into the internals of the rifle. Tape over the trigger as well. You don't want to get any spray paint into the trigger housing. Again, that can cause potential trigger issues, or it can potentially just cause the trigger to be a little bit rougher. Another place to tape over as well, the threads of your muzzle device, or if your muzzle device is removed, tape over the threads on your barrel. You don't want to get any paint on those threads, because that can make putting on muzzle devices and taking them off a pain. If you have a muzzle device that accepts a suppressor, I would suggest you tape over that muzzle device so that way that paint doesn't cause any interference issues between the muzzle device and the suppressor. Tape over the muzzle or the end of the muzzle device so that way no paint gets into the barrel, obviously. Another option is you can take like an earplug and roll it up and stick it into the muzzle as well. Other things, sights, obviously, don't paint over sights, or at least don't paint over like the apertures and the front sight post. The sight housing, if you want to paint over that, that's fine. In terms of optics and stuff like that, obviously tape over the lenses, tape over any necessary markings like windage adjustments and elevation adjustments, an eye relief adjustment. I would suggest taping over that as well, so that way it doesn't interfere with that mechanism. Lights, obviously, make sure you don't paint over the lens and all that stuff. All right, with all that being said, let's get to painting the rifle. Okay, so once you tape up everything you do not want to paint, you are either going to hang the rifle up. In this case, I hung it up via a bungee cord on my ceiling. Hanging the rifle has the advantage that allows you to just generally move the rifle around easier, but also allows you to paint the entire rifle in one go. You can also lay the rifle down on a piece of cardboard if you'd like and spray paint it that way. The one disadvantage of doing it that way is that you are going to have to do it in two parts. So you're going to have to spray paint one side of the rifle, allow that to dry, and then flip it to do the other side, but it's not really a big deal. So what you're going to do is you're going to pick one base color, and you can pick whatever color you like, but in my case I like to use tan. Now the base color, if you're going to do it the way I'm going to do it, it's actually going to be the least prominent color of the colors that you are going to use. I'm using 3 colors. I'm using tan, green, and brown. And tan's going to be, again, the least prominent color of them all, because the only tan that's going to be on the rifle, that's going to end up being on the rifle, is going to be from the pattern created by the cargo net in this case. If you are using the spray paint that I recommend, which is either Krylon or the Rust-Oleum camouflage paint, you only need to allow the paint to dry until it's dry enough to handle, which is typically around 30 minutes. Typically this paint dries to the touch in 15 and it's dry enough to handle within 30 minutes. So you're going to spray paint the rifle, either the entire rifle or half the rifle. Allow it to dry for 30 minutes, and if you hung it up, then you're done with the base coat. If you did it on one side, then you're obviously going to have to flip it and do the other side and allow that to dry. Once your base coat has dried, next we are going to add the other colors. In this case it's green and brown, along with our pattern. So I took it off the bungee cord for this because it's just easier to get that cargo net, in this case, wrapped fairly snug around the rifle with it just laying down on a piece of cardboard. So that's what I did. In this case I'm using that cargo net, but again you can also use that cheap laundry mat that I talked about. They're going to create different patterns, but the spray painting process really is exactly the same. So you're going to lay the rifle down, get that whatever netting you're using wrapped fairly snug around the rifle. It doesn't have to be very tight. It just needs to be snug enough to the rifle where it'll actually create the pattern. Because if it's too loose and that netting is not really in contact with the rifle, the spray paint will just get underneath the netting and it won't really create a nice pattern. So once your netting's in place, you are just going to take your brown and you're going to paint certain areas of the rifle brown and dark brown, and then on other areas you're just going to spray it very light brown, just enough just to darken up the tan a little bit. After that you're going to take your green, and in all those areas that you sprayed very lightly brown, you're going to paint those areas green, and that's where you're going to get that green and brown contrast. If you're laying the rifle down like I did here, you'll probably have to do one side, allow that one side to dry, and then flip it around and do the other side. And make sure you get the bottoms and the top of the rifle as well. Allow the rifle to dry, and that's it. You're done. Don't overthink it. In fact, the more you overthink it, generally the worse it'll come out. Just go out and spray the thing, and it will generally come out quite well. Well, I hope you found this video helpful. I hope your rifle comes out well, and I hope you like it. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave them down below, and I'll do my best to get to them. Please like, follow, share, subscribe wherever you're watching this. I'm Tyler Austin. Thank you so much for watching.